Hello everyone, my name is Anvita and I am partnering with my peer Krishna for this session. Today we are going to discuss about Outlook setup and troubleshooting. This session encompasses Outlook client protocol, covering a broad spectrum of scenarios like connectivity, synchronization, credential prompts, and troubleshooting of these scenarios. We'll also be talking about relevant logs to be collected and different tools we can leverage to help solve these issues. So let's get started with today's session. Starting with the agenda of today's session, we'll be discussing about overview of Microsoft Outlook, different modes of installation, administering and managing Outlook and managing the updates specifically, some of the common issues and troubleshooting these issues, and the useful tools that we leverage for these issues. Starting with the Outlook overview, we know that Outlook Client is one of the most productivity apps from Microsoft. And we also have Outlook Web Access as well as mobile application. However, Outlook Client is one of the mostly used applications. When it comes to Outlook Client on Windows, there are two different variants. One is MSI and the other one is C2R. C2R as in Click to Run. Click to Run is a subscription-based product, whereas MSI is a volume license-based product, which uses KMS or MAK-based options for licensing. C2R specifically gets both security and feature updates, whereas MSI gets security updates only. The latest version of MSI is Office 2019. Though Office 2019 is an MSI-based product, the technology used for installation is Click to Run. One of the main ways to be able to distinguish between MSI and C2R would be to open any of the Office applications and go to File, Office Account. And if there is an option called Update, then it's a Click to Run product. If there's no option called Update on the UI, it's an MSI product. So the recommended version would be Microsoft 365 Apps for Enterprise for Outlook. Moving on with the next part, talking about the Outlook installation. So Outlook installation comes as a package with the Office suite. There are different modes of installation of Office suite in general. So one would be direct portal installation. We have ODT, that is Office Deployment Tool, which can also be used to install. One of the widely used type would be using SCCM. That is System Center Configuration Manager, which is now called as Microsoft Endpoint Manager. So MSI package as well as C2R both can be pushed via SCCM. And we know that MSI being the volume license, it applies only to perpetual versions of Office. When it comes to MSI installation, we need to wait until the whole of Office product is installed in order to start the usage of Office applications. Whereas Click to Run, you do not have to wait for the entire installation to be able to utilize any of the Office applications. So we recommend using ODT when it comes to deploying Office. And apart from SCCM, you can also use Office customization tool along with ODT, and group policy can also be utilized in order to push these templates, XML files on all the machines. Moving to the next part, talking about managing Outlook. So group policy object, that is GPO, which is one of the most widely used scenario in order to push the updates. So Microsoft's GPO is a collection of group policy settings that defines what the system will look like and how it will behave for a defined group of users. GPMC, that is Group Policy Management Console, allows you to create a GPO that defines registry-based policies, security options, software installations, maintenance options, script options, and folder redirection options. So you can download and install the group policy administrative templates. You can directly find the links to download this. And these specific templates comes in two different set of options, that is ADMX and ADML. And these files need to be specifically stored under these folder paths, that is policy definitions for ADMX, and ADML files should be saved under policy definitions ENUS. So once these are initialized, you can go and modify whichever settings that you need to be initialized specifically for Outlook. Here, you can customize things like warning messages. You can disable items in the user interface, any of the Outlook options, or you can even turn on or off a specific add-in or filter for all users or set of users. Another way in order to customize these updates would also be to utilize Office Cloud Policy Service. Talking about Office updates in general, we know that O365 CDN, that is Content Delivery Network, is used for Office updates. And there are different modes of channels for these updates to be initialized. So current channel is where you get the security and feature updates as early as possible. Whereas in monthly channel, you get the updates second Tuesday of every month, and it has a defined structure as to when the updates need to be scheduled. Whereas semi-annual channel comes every 6 months based on if you have chosen semi-annual or semi-annual targeted. Moving on to the next part, talking about some of the most common issues that we face when it comes to Outlook. So connectivity issues are some of the most common issues that we face, where either Outlook stays disconnected or it is not able to connect to the server. And the troubleshooting would differ based on understanding if the issue is specific to Outlook client or related to the Exchange server. We get a lot of synchronization issues where either an email is stuck in the outbox or the specific users are not able to send or receive emails. A lot of calendaring related issues, search related issues where users are not able to search a specific email or search in general is very slow. And some of the other generic issues would be performance issues, credential prompts, shared mailbox or public folder sync issues. And one of the major issues that we see would be with regard to DLP policy tips, because there are a set of defined structure where DLP policy tips are supported for Outlook client and some are not. And then there are issues with related to installation or features. So talking about some of the basics that we need to check when it comes to these issues. These are some of the things that we can check regardless of whichever issue that we're talking in general, because these would be required in order to isolate the issue so that we can scope it better in order to understand what could be the possible root cause. So the first test that we do would be to check if the issue is occurring specifically in online mode or cache mode. And one of the tests that we run would be to run Outlook on safe mode. So when we run Outlook in safe mode, it ensures that all the third-party add-ins or any of the add-ins or any of the inbox rules or filters that you've applied are all disabled, and it starts Outlook. So we know that if there's an issue that is specifically related or entitled to any of these factors and it's not occurring in safe mode, that means we know that it's one of these entities could be the possible cause of the problem. We also usually disable third-party add-ins because specifically in performance-related issues where an add-in could be causing the crash or hang, etc., it would be a good isolation to disable third-party add-ins first, and then if the issue is not occurring, we slowly isolate by disabling these add-ins one by one in order to isolate which could be the possible cause. And the other good thing to check would be to be able to isolate if the issue is specific to a machine, or if it's specific to a user profile, or if it's specific to the mailbox. Office repair is something that we run, either the online repair or the quick repair. And one of the things that we recommend everybody is to ensure that the office updates are on the latest, because if in case there are any known issues which have already been recognized, then the latest updates would have all the fixes. So we would like to ensure that everybody is on the monthly channel and on the latest build. If in case there is an issue that you're facing, then it would be a good isolation to get the user's machine on the monthly channel and on the latest build. And one of the major things which is very important would be to utilize SARA, that is Microsoft Support and Recovery Assistant, which is one of the most useful tools when it comes to Outlook troubleshooting. So we can gather the SARA report, and also SARA is a tool which will help you fix any issues and recognize which could be the possible errors. So we'll be discussing in detail about SARA towards the end of the session. And I will be now handing this over to my colleague Krishna to take us further with the troubleshooting scenarios.
Thanks, Anvita, for the quick intro and overview on Outlook troubleshooting. Hello, everyone. Following with our agenda today, we'll see some of the common Outlook-related issues and troubleshooting tips to isolate the same. Connectivity issues. Before we start with connectivity issues, it is important to know that AutoDiscover is the feature that Outlook uses to obtain configuration information for service to which it connects to. AutoDiscover process contains various steps which can be controlled via registries or group policies when needed. Uh, we can also use SARA diagnostic tool, which helps identify, fix most of the basic Outlook issues. As said, we'll discuss more about this in the upcoming slide. And event viewer is very helpful, especially when dealing with client-side issues. As seen, now you could also have an option to filter out only the Outlook generated events. I'll show up the screenshot in the upcoming slide. And however, to note that there are other event logs from different sources which has to be also considered based on the scenarios that we troubleshoot. EXRCA. So EXRCA is Microsoft Remote Connectivity Analyzer, is again an ideal handy tool to identify connectivity issues, so which is available as an online portal and can be accessed from testconnectivity.microsoft.com. This is not just limited to Exchange Online or only for issues discussed today, and it has many other tests that would help us troubleshooting issues related with some of the product. Connection status is a dialog box that appears when you do control plus right click on the Outlook notification icon, as like it would provide us multiple connection related details. And test email auto configuration, it's a vital when you handle issues with AutoDiscover, which can also be launched from control, right click on Outlook notification bar icon, and you get an option to test email auto configuration, and you see the dialog boxes shown in the screenshot here. Now, another major steps to narrow down the issue is by disabling proxy in between the client and the server. You can use this command to check if there are any proxy setup from elevated command prompt net shfin http shows proxy. We could try switching the network, that is connecting from a different network like external or another subnet, etc. To advance further, if it is suspected to be an issue with network related, capturing a network trace would also help. And fiddler trace helps to study the HTTP traffic between client and the server. And advanced logging for Outlook issues event uses event tracing for Windows and provide .etl logs, which when requested can be shared with Microsoft support for further analysis. And we can try configuring Outlook without an email account by creating a PIM account, which is Personal Information Manager. This isolates connectivity to the server. So how do I do that? In the run window, just type outlook.exe/pim and leave a space and type a profile name like test profile, and then click OK. That's it. It creates a profile without an email account, which would help us to completely isolate any connection to the server and see if the issue is actually with the local client. And we can also try switching between cache and online modes. The screenshot shows of how we can change it from the Outlook account settings. So you could see, go to Outlook and Outlook file and then account settings, and you get the dialog box shown here on the background, and just highlight the primary account, click on change, and will get the option to check uncheck. If it is check, it is the cache mode is enabled, and unchecking it and clicking on next and OK will enable the online mode. Coming to sync issues. So Outlook synchronizes with the mail server on a regular basis in the background. So sync issues folder in the Outlook folder view can be checked. So the sync, you could see a folder named sync issues, which can be viewed from Outlook folder view. And generally the sync folders hold logs about problems encountered when syncing Outlook items to or from the mail server. Event ID 19 happens when there are any RPC, remote procedure call failures to mail servers, which may be commonly due to any network drops. And connection status window, as discussed on previous slide, it can be launched from Outlook notification bar icon, which will show the Outlook connection to the respective endpoints, and we can check if there are any connection failures to those endpoints. And so especially when it comes to sync issues, we could check the local mailbox tab. So the connection endpoints, the previous options that I was saying is on the general tab. Clicking on the local mailbox tab will show sync activities. So and as seen discussed before, the OST size should also be considered. So .ost file is the offline Outlook data file that stores a synchronized copy of your mailbox information on your local computer. And usually new messages are synchronized or temporarily hidden so that they can be processed by certain Outlook background tasks, for example, like inbox rule. Post the item is processed, it should be unhidden. But now if that fails to happen, then we would not see the email in the folder. Now for that we could try update folder from send receive tab, like if you the update folder to do a manual sync. And we could also try Outlook /clean IPS, which could also help with this, to clear any offline items. Now this is like basically helpful on Outlook, older Outlook versions, as the newer ones has this built in. Now in worst case, we could also try clear offline items option. You could get the option by right clicking on any of the affected folder and then do a manual sync by clicking on update folder from sync send receive tab. So this step ensures that it clears the local cached items of the folder from the .ost file, and then it resyncs again. To isolate if there are any secondary mailboxes added or causing issues, we could uncheck download shared folders. It can be accessed from again Outlook file account settings and change account settings, and then once you click more settings you get this dialog shown here. and you would see the secondary mailboxes added if there are any manually added secondary additional mailboxes here. And here is the option to uncheck download chat folder. Calendaring issues. So the first thing to verify is that if necessary, delegate permissions are in place. So delegate settings can be verified from file, account settings, delegate access, like as shown in the first the screenshot here at the top. So you would see the options, all the delegates listed here, and highlighting a delegate and clicking on permission will give you more other options as well. Now, sometimes you might come across Outlook calendar related errors like can't open this item or unable to open the FreeBusy information. So to resolve these issues later to FreeBusy, we could try the cleaning of like hidden FreeBusy information in the mailbox using Outlook space / clean FreeBusy command line switch. So there are certain command line switches that can be used for certain scenarios, and we would see the switches accordingly when we move on slides. Now check calendar item message class. So the message class for an item is defined by its message class property, which is used to identify the form that should be used to display the item. With respect to calendar items, like it's expected to have IPM.appointment message class. In case of issues like calendar item missing that is not shown within the calendar folders, we can check this. Now, one way to determine the currently configured default message class of the folder is by just right clicking on the calendar folder in the folder Outlook folder view, and then select properties, and then you could see, check for this value like when posting to this folder under general tab, and you can check the message class value here as shown, IPM.appointment. So some of the calendar issues can be due to conflicts from active sync devices. So we could try disabling Exchange active sync for isolation, or at least stop syncing the calendar folder to the mobile device to check the behavior post doing that. Meeting Analyzer tool is a great tool for troubleshooting to know like what happened to a particular meeting on a user's calendar. And the output of the tool contains the log showing a summary and history of the meeting. All the version history of each item basically runs the get calendar diagnostic object exchange PowerShell command that's in behind. So this tool can be downloaded from the web. Coming to search issues. So checking the indexing status and rebuilding. So if in cache mode, like we could try to verify and rebuild the search index by navigating to the indexing options so you could see under Outlook options, we have go to search tab and then select advanced, indexing options, and then select advanced here on the dialog box shown, and we have the option to click rebuild. So this can also be launched from Windows control panel. Now indexing status could be verified from indexing options as like you see here. So you could see it shows indexing complete, and this has to be shown when you rebuild the index. It might take some time depending on the number of files or the size of files to sync, and number of files, the size of the file, so that we could wait some time and ensure that the indexing complete status is shown here, and then try to reproduce the search issue. And to isolate server-side search issue, just to isolate, add the disable server assisted registry search registry key to stop server-side search calls to the server. Now this key disables Outlook from requesting and using search results from Exchange. Instead, it will use search results from Windows Search Service. And the path would be like HKey current user. software, Microsoft Office 16, and then Outlook search. Outlook and then search. I want to give a quick tip here before we move on. So any like M365 apps or like Office 2019 and Office 2016, all have the same version number 16. So of now, and so while troubleshooting the issues with respect to any of these latest Outlook versions, it is expected to look for the Windows registry hive that has 16.0 as the version number. Okay. Now, Windows search feature. Yeah, we could verify if Windows search service is running on the affected PC. And it is also good to know like Outlook has different search scopes like current folder, current mailbox. I'll show you up on the so the screenshot on the next slide. So that help these scopes help direct the query against specific data set to narrow the results. Generally, users can narrow the search criteria for better searches in Outlook and in times to isolate profile-wide search issues. So Outlook also provide number of built-in search filters. To use the built-in filters, user can click in the search box and the Outlook ribbon will change to show the search tab with all the search options visible. Now these steps basically helps to narrow down if the search is affecting the whole profile or individual folder, etc. So this is the search scope that I was telling. So these are the scopes like current folder, current mailbox, all mailbox. All these are the search scopes, and we could modify the two different scopes and see if the issue is specific to any of this. And then like search locations, it is good to ensure that Microsoft Outlook is added as search location under indexing options. And then event ID 10023 or 10024 like indicate I filter issues like PDF I filter issues, and then 3036 indicates search service issues. When it comes to Outlook for Mac, it relies on Spotlight search to provide search results for Outlook data. So like Windows search feature in Outlook for Windows. We could check if the Spotlight search indexing is incomplete or corrupted. Shared mailbox and public folder sync issues. Yes, again, SARA diagnostic tool comes handy here, where we have dedicated options for problems with shared mailboxes. Now, it is first recommended here to ensure the affected user has full access over shared mailbox or necessary permission to access public folder in case of public folder issues. It is good to check first now if they can access the shared mailbox or public folder using Outlook web app or Outlook on the web. To isolate on Outlook side, we can create a new separate profile for the shared mailbox. Like how do we do that? Like just creating a new Outlook profile by entering the email address of the shared mailbox and the password of the owner, that is the affected mailbox password. And like shared mailbox can be or like accessible in Outlook using auto mapping feature, by which the shared mailbox will automatically start showing up in the owner's Outlook profile using auto discover. multi-x multi-x account is like adding a separate account to the same Outlook profile, as similar as creating a new Outlook profile. So multi-x is multiple exchange account. And then additional mailbox, as like what we have seen before, is like adding the shared mailbox manually using the options like you can see on the screenshot here by navigating to file account settings and then highlighting the account affected account, clicking on change, and then more settings on the exchange account settings dialog, and then you have the advanced tab where you could manually add the additional mailboxes. And then auto discover XML payloads, like it contains all the necessary data that Outlook client needs for establishing connectivity to Exchange services, including shared mailbox and public folder details. You could find it under alternative mailbox. For the details of the shared mailbox will be under alternative mailbox, and public folder information is a tag that will show the public folder details that the mailbox would connect to. So in like when which can be again seen, or the XML response can be taken from the test email auto configuration, like we discussed earlier, from the Outlook notification bar icon. And for public folder issues, we shall try adding the public folder to favorites by right clicking on the folder, and also like enabling the download public folder favorites as like shown in the screenshot here. This helps delay in accessing a public folder. So this would, all the steps would help us to isolate the issues and direct us in the right way. Moving on to next issue, contacts and address book. So an offline address book, or OAB, is a downloadable address list collection that Outlook users can access while in cache mode. So there are certain conditions for a full OAB download to happen, like a previous full download failed, or there's no OAB file on the client computer. So user can do manual OAB update by navigating to file, account settings, and then clicking on download address book, or send receive option as shown here on the screenshot. Just click on send receive tab, send receive, and then you have the send receive groups option. Once you click, you have offline address book, and then clicking on this, you would get this option to manually download. And then to do a full download, unchecking this box will download the full AAB, or checking this box as shown as mentioned here will download since the last send receive. So we can check again auto discover payload, the XML file, to see if there are correct OAB endpoint listed. So, and then you could try removing the user from autocomplete cache. So like you can see on the screenshot here, just start typing the affected contact, the recipient, and then you would see the email address listed here, and just right click on the X icon shown to the right of it, and that would clear the autocomplete cache of that email address. Or there is also an option like named empty autocomplete list to completely remove all the names and email address from the autocomplete list. So we have to be sure that all the cached autocomplete list will be cleared one if we use that option to empty. And check if there are conflicts with active sync devices, okay, with any mobile devices that has this user profile configured. And then if let's say if one or specific contacts are missing, we can check if those missing contact are in gal like global address list using Outlook web app. It should be shown in Outlook web app before we troubleshoot with Outlook. Okay, so moving on to the next slide, troubleshooting performance issues. So when it comes to any performance issues, CPU utilization should be the first check need to be done. Now there can be various reasons that can slow down Outlook. However, the most common are here. Now, like runtime, resource usage limits apply to all types of Office add-ins. So if any Outlook add-in exceeds the preceding thresholds for CPU core or like memory usage, Outlook would disable the add-in automatically. Uh, so we could try disabling the add-ins, or try Outlook safe mode, like you see on the screenshot here. Open run, and then type Outlook space / safe, and clicking on OK would launch Outlook in safe mode. Next is to check the event viewer for related events. So shown are some of the events of interest, which basically gives details of crash and hang. So ID like 1000 indicates a crash, and 1001 and 1002 indicate an application hang. And we could check for available disk space or the drive space where Outlook is installed or the OST file exists. Now we could also try Outlook /space/ clean views command line switch, which actually restores to default views. So any custom views that users created are lost, and if those views are causing these performance issues, we could that could get resolved, and we could move down further to see which view is actually causing the issue. And yes, so this is the screenshot which I shared on the first slide as well. So you could filter the events that are triggered specific from Outlook sources. So going to event viewer and from application logs or any logs, you could click filter, and then you have the options like event sources. Select Outlook and click OK. So this would show the event specifically triggered from this event source Outlook. You have other filters as well that can be used based on the scenarios. So continuing with this, uh, like folder limits, when it comes to perpetual versions of Outlook, the recommended limits like for Outlook 2019 and 2016, 2013, or even 2010, like it should be like 1 lakh items per folder or 5,000 items per calendar folder. So this is like for the perpetual versions of Outlook, and it is the recommended limits. And then we also can it's good to ensure that no other process or service is using or have the outlook.exe file locked or conflict with any add-ins. And then the common solution is this case, like for most issues, would be to ensure that we have the latest update. Uh, and then we could also try different Windows profile to see if that helps. And then again, enabling advanced logging as shown here would help us to troubleshoot further. So enabling advanced logging is by going to Outlook options, advanced tab, and then enabling troubleshooting logging. So this will be required when we need to troubleshoot more extensively, and then when further needed. Okay. So here is Outlook credential prompt. Now I want to start like Windows stores the Office identity in the registry and Windows credential store. So like if you take the modern client, the access tokens are kept in HKey, current user, software, Microsoft Office version, and then like common identity registry hives. And then refresh tokens are like stored in the Windows credential store, and it would have the following naming convention like Microsoft Office 16, and then you have the data and the GUID value. And Mac OS, these items are stored in the user's keychain. So we could similarly like Windows, we can clear the Windows credential, saved on Credential Manager. On Mac, we could try clearing the keychain and see if that helps. And then like Outlook would try to perform two authentications. So one for the directory or store connections, and other for auto discover or like web services. So if Outlook goes to need password state or disconnected mode, or like if you see trying to connect, you would see all the status on the Outlook status bar at the bottom right corner. So most probably all the status that happens would be like because the password prompts would be coming from either directory or mailbox connections. So And then we could check if there are any proxy or firewall blocks, or if the issue happens even with other client applications like Teams. And then again, these are our diagnostic tools. And then we could try with a new Outlook profile, or again with different PC, or trying connecting from a different network. Especially we could try from an external network, which is not a domain joined network. And then we could see if there are any connection to on-premises environment. Like you could have a public folder that still exists on on-premise, or you could have any other endpoint that is connecting to on-premises, and see if that that triggers a credential prompt. And then you could try Outlook Safe Mode, or like disabling third-party add-ins. And then for Outlook for Mac, we could ensure the UPN is entered in the username field. Like when say like if you have the email address and the UPN differs in some of the environment, and we could see if the user has entered the user UPN, the user principal name, in the username field of the accounts dialog box when creating the profile. Okay, so before we move on to the next slide, like we have seen before, some of the status like need password or disconnected state. Now, if Outlook remains connected after canceling the prompt, let's say you get a credential prompt and you click on cancel, but the Outlook still remains connected, and the prompt is just, it's a bogus. And then it's likely the password prompt that comes from an additional connection like Auto Discover or like EWS services. So that these things would help us to know like which service or which connection endpoint is causing the prompt to appear. Okay, so DLP policy and first thing, could check if it actually works in Outlook web app or Outlook on the web, to isolate if the issue is specific to Outlook desktop client, or if it's something with web client, so that we could start troubleshooting from the DLP policy on the server side. And then we can confirm if other mail tips are working. So mail tips are informative messages displayed to users while they're composing a message. For example, we get a mail tip as invalid internal recipient. Like when the sender adds an internal recipient that actually doesn't exist in the environment, you would get that mail tip. Or when the sender adds an internal recipient who has turned on automatic reply, you would see an mail tip for the same. So it's good to ensure the policy tip notification is enabled in Outlook options, mail, and then you have mail tip option, and then you have, if you scroll down here, you have the options of policy tip notification on the mail tips option dialog. And then we could the other things would be to check if the policy nudge files are located on the user's PC. So this files would basically be on C or the user's local app data, and then Outlook folder. So the two files, common files, are policy nudge classification definitions, and it will have a GUID and then .xml file extension. This basically has the rules package classification details, and then other would be policy nudge rules underscore GUID.xml. This is like the policy XML. This contains the policy XML information. So we could also try re-downloading the nudge files, policy nudge files, by deleting the last download time per account key from this hive, like mentioned, HKey current user, software, Microsoft Office 16, and Outlook and policy nudges. So this will trigger the re-download of the nudge files. And please note that currently Outlook 2013 and later supports showing policy tips only for DLP conditions, which is content contains and content is shared. So this is the current current scenarios where, or current conditions where the policy tips in Outlook desktop clients are supported. So next slide is installation and feature issues. Now, in case of installation and any feature issues, below are some of the key points to note. We can try Office repair or reinstallation of Office. So there are two options of repair available as shown in the screenshot. Quick repair, it detects and replaces the corrupted files without the need of an internet connection. On the other hand, online repair does extensive task and takes more time. So and it like fixes like it performs some of the other tasks that quick repair doesn't do. And then like ROS scan is a VB script that can be downloaded from the web. So this helps to identify all installs of Office on that machine, which can basically be used to identify if there are any other conflicts with the versions and products installed. And again, SARA is also bundled with an uninstall fix-it tool, which can help remove the complete traces of Office easily. So we would see that. So the one of the scenarios that SARA contains is to uninstall the Office client. And coming to rules, to isolate issues with rules, we can export all the rules as .rwz files, and then you could check the behavior by removing the rules. So because we mostly encounter issues due to the corrupted rules when it comes to client-side rules issue. So it is also good to be aware that there are client-side issues and client-side and server-side rules as well. So not all rules that seen in created via Outlook works with seen on the Outlook on the web. Now, in order to like on uh, run any specific script, we could ensure that the enable unsafe registry is like enable, or it could be disabled for the for the security reason. And then where are there any issues with the user license, Office apps goes to reduce functionality mode or FM, and some features might not work unless it is fixed. So there is also a need to validate affected users license. And then for any view related issues like unexpected view or behavior of Outlook options, we can ensure the we are updated drivers or the hardware graphic acceleration. And then this is not generally like a common issue and mostly would be an external cause. For issues related to folder view, we can try Outlook space / clean views command to switch to or reset to default views. Then also we could try adjusting Windows display configurations when having issues with Outlook display, especially when working when in a multi-monitor display. Okay, so with this, I'll hand this over to Anvita to help us with some of the common tools in Outlook troubleshooting.
Thank you, Krishna. So, talking about some of the most common tools when it comes to Outlook troubleshooting, one of the most robust tools would be SARA, that is Microsoft Support and Recovery Assistant. So, as you can see on the screenshot here, SARA is one of the tools which is not just used for Outlook specifically, it can be used for any of the applications, that is any of the client applications like Teams, Office in general, OneDrive for Business, Dynamics 365, Outlook for Mac, and also mobile devices as well as Windows. So that's the reason it's ideal for most of these scenarios. And it has built-in Outlook scan and also performs environmental checks. By environmental checks, I mean the entire scan of your Windows computer in general, along with the Outlook, by identifying which are the other softwares or applications which are also interfering with Outlook, and the kind of antivirus or firewall devices you have, etc. So SARA uses advanced diagnostics to report known problems and details about your Microsoft Outlook configuration. Some of the reported problems are linked to the public-facing documentation, usually a Microsoft knowledge base article for possible fixes. Okay, so as soon as you select Outlook here, when we are talking specifically about Outlook, we can select Outlook and then click on Next. So it pre-populates some of the categories or some of the issues, like generic issues. And Krishna covered most of those scenarios. Here, starting from Outlook won't start, or if you have issues specifically where Outlook is asking for passwords, like you get password prompts, or it has connectivity issues, or issues with regard to shared mailbox, performance issues like hang, crash, freeze, etc. Or generally, if you have any other issues with regard to Outlook which are not listed in any of these specific topics, you can also select other problems, and then you can click on Next. So when you click on Next, it prompts you if this is the affected machine. So you choose yes, and then you proceed further. So then the SARA asks you for your email address and the password. You have to provide of the same profile where you're trying to fix the issue, of the same email account where you're trying to fix the Outlook issue. So as soon as you enter your email address and the password, the SARA on the background does the 3 checks which are listed here. First thing is that it validates the user's authentication, and then it collects the information about the user account, and then it begins the troubleshooting of this issue. This is the first layer of troubleshooting that SARA does. So after finishing the first layer of troubleshooting, and when it is doing it in the background, if it identifies something that could be the potential cause, it tries to fix it by itself. In case this tool is not still able to identify, then it prompts you that it needs to collect more information in order to understand the problem. So in this case, you have to again click on yes, and then select the specific Outlook profile where you're facing the issue, and then hit next. And after that, it first checks for the system settings. When system settings, what I mean by is your Windows system settings. So it first tries to identify if there are any possible corruptions with the specific machine. And here in this screenshot, it shows that system settings looks fine. So then it runs the recovery steps in order to fix the Outlook issue which is in question here. And first it does is the Office 365 readiness checks. When it does the Office 365 readiness checks, it does the network connectivity checks, it does the domain registration checks, and Office 365 user settings, which is nothing but auto discover. And it also checks if the TLS 1.2 is enabled. Here 1.2 is the supported one. So it checks if that the supported version is enabled. It also checks regarding the Outlook protocol readiness for the specific account. And here also checks for any of the crashes, possible crashes, and how to fix it. So after that, you can carry forward with the next steps to see if there are any other issues. So SARA tries to run the recovery in the background, and it will basically close all the other applications. So before running SARA, you can make sure that all the applications are closed, because SARA does not require your Outlook to be running in order to run these recovery steps. So you can close all the applications. And here it also tries to check the Exchange cache mode recovery on Outlook. And then you can go back and start your Outlook profile and see if the issue has fixed. So in case it has fixed, then yeah, great. SARA has fixed the issue which you are facing. In case not, then we have another option which we'll discuss next. So Now comes the advanced diagnostics. So when the normal method of selecting the application and trying to run the recovery does not fix, that is when we can run the advanced diagnostics. Again, advanced diagnostics can be run for Outlook, Office, as well as Exchange Online. So here we're talking about Outlook. So we select Outlook and click on Next. So after this, it gives us three different views. That is, it gives you a list of issues found. It gives you a detailed view as well as configuration summary. When you click on issues found, it gives you pretty much straightforward warning messages, as well as if there are any specific issues, it will give you those specific details. Here in the screenshot, it's the ones which are highlighted in red are the errors. Here it says hardware acceleration is disabled. So when you expand this tree, it will also give you an option where you can go and click for an online solution. And the other errors which are highlighted in yellow are possibly not the errors which are related to the issue in question, but these also could be the warning messages. For example, some are generic, like Room Finder hidden because Microsoft Exchange add-in is not enabled. So we know that if Exchange add-in is not enabled, Room Finder will not be displayed. So some of them could be generic, but if the warnings or errors listed are entitled to the issue that we are facing, then it is good to go and click on these specific warnings and try to fix all these errors. So you can, as soon as you click on the drop down again, you will get also a link which shows the online solution. So you can just go and click there, and you can try to fix those issues. So when you click on detailed view, so detailed view is nothing but this tab contains the configuration information for diagnosing an Outlook issue from the client side. So some of the information that the detailed view contains would be the username, computer hardware, Windows version, Office installation, Outlook profile, registry and policy information, and as well as event logs. So all these details are provided in a tree view, and if you select any node, you can expand or collapse it, and you can find the relevant information as the need requires. And this is specifically helpful because it will, in one repository itself, it will give you a lot of details with regard to not just your Outlook account, but also all the other details, like we talk about our machine, our system settings, our Windows versions, and as well as registry and any other policies that we've applied along with the event logs. So this is very helpful because we will be able to identify anything specific to this profile. And then we also have a configuration summary tab. The information on the configuration summary tab is a snapshot of the configuration settings that are most frequently collected and analyzed. So usually when we collect the advanced diagnostics, it's best to pass this on to the Microsoft support representative, so that in case the issues found you're not able to fix it, it will be best to pass it on to the support representative to analyze this further. So after you click on next again, you will also find the logs, and you have an option called send. So you can either go and view these files, or you can just send it if you already are interacting with a Microsoft support representative. When you click on send, it will directly be linked to the Microsoft support representative in our database, and we will be able to view it through our ticketing tool. Or what you can do is, if you want it even for your own reference, you can also find it in this path, that is app data, local, SARA logs, upload logs. You will be able to find these configuration details logs. So you will also be able to view it from here. So yeah, we encourage using SARA for most of the ideal scenarios, so that you before troubleshooting in deep or in depth, you can try to recognize if there are any issues which can be found from this tool. So moving on to the next part. So when we talk about Outlook for Mac logging, like we discussed previously, when it comes to Outlook for Windows, we can enable the logging within the Outlook options advanced, where you have the option to enable troubleshooting logging. Whereas for Outlook for Mac, it works a little differently. So on Outlook for Mac, on the Windows menu, we have something called sync errors. So when you select the sync errors, you have a gear icon. On the gear icon, there's an option to turn on the logging for troubleshooting. So this is equivalent to the advanced logging that we collect on Outlook for Windows. So as soon as you enable this, it requires you to restart and then reproduce the issue in order to capture these logs. Again, these logs, you can collect these logs in order to send it to Microsoft support representative in order to analyze this further. Moving on to the next set of tools that we use. One of the most useful tools would be Fiddler. Fiddler is basically used in order to understand the HTTP traffic, and it's used for different scenarios like auto-discover issues, credential prompt issues, connectivity issues, etc. And you will be able to understand which are the specific HTTP traffic requests that are coming, and what are the HTTP error codes, based on which we can investigate further. Then we have Process Explorer. So Process Explorer shows you information about which handles or DLLs have been opened or loaded in the specific application. So it can be used for any application, any of the client application, in order to list the third-party DLLs which are running under Outlook or Word, etc. So this will also be useful in order to identify if there is any third-party add-ins or DLLs which are causing the issue. So this will be very good to isolate. Then we have MFC MAPI. So MFC MAPI provides access to MAPI stores to facilitate investigation of Exchange and Outlook issues. So it's highly recommended that MFC MAPI tool should be used only when you have a Microsoft support representative who is helping you, because any changes which are made on the MFC MAPI are directly made to the store. So we want to ensure that any of the changes that are made are all the relevant changes, and that is why it's highly recommended not to use this without a Microsoft support representative. And then we have something called Procmon, which is Process Monitor. Process Monitor is an advanced monitoring tool for Windows that shows real-time file system, registry, and process or thread-related activity. So this is specifically, again, used for any issues which are specific to performance, or if you are able to isolate that there could be any other application softwares which are intruding with the Outlook application, which could be the reason why we are facing the issue. So this is something that we do not use in the beginning of troubleshooting, but we use this at the later stage of troubleshooting. So all these other common tools that we discussed now are recommended to use when we have a support representative working. So with this, we come to the end of the session. So I hope this session was useful. Thank you for watching this video.